you still got God's message out there. Because it was God who gave you that idea. That was God's idea. And you just are blessed enough to be able to hear God's messages. So even if they don't want to include you, you still got them doing God's ideas. So be grateful for that. You ain't got to be given a credit for it. You're still getting God's messages out there. You're still getting God's ideas out there. Remember, when you get divine inspiration from God, it's not your ideas they stole. It's God's ideas you shared. Because they would never let you put that out there into the community. So God tricked them and got it out there anyway. That's major. That's huge. So when people are doing that kind of stuff to you, bro, be complimenting and realize that in the end, God still got his message out there. And no, they were never going to let you put it out there, but it don't matter. You gave them the ideas divinely inspired by God. And your message is going to get to the community anyway, and that's all you're here to do is spread light. So don't be discouraged when people are just taking from you and using you. Because that happens to the chosen ones. Because not everybody can hear the Father. Not everybody can hear, and I say Father, it's an energy, it's not male or female. But not everybody can get messages straight from the divine. And they're in awe that you can. They're amazed by your ideas. And they think they're great. They just don't want you to know that. You know? So don't be insulted. And don't let the principalities you're fighting against. Because you know, if you're a light warrior and you're following my stuff, you got a great calling on your life. You're meant to do something amazing in the world. Don't let them stop you. Because they can't stop you from reaching your destiny. No matter how much negative energy they throw at you, no matter how much, like right now, I can't go live. I did 2 great live videos yesterday. My account gets hacked, I can't go live. If you notice, this is always going on with my platform. Is the dark trying to silence me? It's funny because God tells me all the time, Carla, the only way you won't reach your destiny is if you stop. Don't let them stop you. Don't let them silence you. Find another way. If you know what God has called you to do in this life, do it, just like Sean. He knew he was here to expose social injustices. And he knew if he wouldn't have went and said what he had to say to expose those social injustices, that he wasn't living his purpose. And he was hell-bent that he was going to come down here and he was going to do what he came down here on this incarnation to do. And nothing was going to stop him. Not even in death. Not even in death. And that's why when he died under suspicious circumstances, he just went to the other side of the veil and started collaborating with his mother. And let me tell you how this is possible. You know, you think, how can somebody that's crossed over be collaborating with his mother on a book, The Myth of Dying? How can he be working with me on my life's work? Let me tell you how. When you die, the body loses 3 pounds of mass. That is the soul exiting the body to continue on his journey. Your ancestors on the other side are a frequency. They are a frequency. It's like listening to the radio. You can't hear what's on 107.7 if you're listening to 101.1. You got to turn the dial. So to connect with our past or loved ones on the other side, they're a frequency. We just have to learn to tune in. That's why you hear me talk a lot about making altars for your ancestors. You know, you get some of their personal effects, you get their picture. You make a sacred space in your home, like my ancestor tree. That empowers my ancestors to act on my behalf on a daily basis. On a daily basis, because you must remember, Earth is a free will planet. Your angels, guides, can be watching you fail miserably at your life, want to help you. But because life's a video game and there's rules of engagement to life on Earth, we must give our permission on a daily basis. When you set up an altar or like an ancestor tree, like I used to have in my home, which these are pictures from the ancestor tree, you are empowering your ancestors to act on your behalf on a daily basis in case you forget to give permission. Now, every morning with our morning alignment, me and Seth, thank our angels, guides, higher self, the Federation of Light, Source, Gaia, all ancestors aligned with the highest light for acting on our behalf for the highest good of all involved. That means we're covered. We're covered. But on the days we're too busy, we forget to do our alignment, we have our ancestor tree. We have our altar. loved one. I just heard something, so spare back there somewhere. so it's like this. Oh, where I was gonna go, I just got distracted by a little spare. I never get that distracted. So it's like this. When my late husband, for example, was alive, he was a very smart man, but he didn't know a lot about spirituality. He knew a lot about trivia and a lot about other things, how to make money, how to save money. Like, he had things he was great at. But as far as spirituality, there's not a lot he knew. So I didn't want to hear much he had to say. But now that he's crossed over and he's on the other side, of course I want his wisdom. He knows everything now. And he can give me useful information to reach my destiny. But how am I to get that information if I don't know how he communicates to me? Or better yet, if I don't even think communication is possible? We must realize that when our ancestors cross over, they are not gone. They are just a non-physical. You just can't connect with them in the usual places and in the usual spaces, but you still can connect. Having an altar set up in your home that you go sit in front of when you need guidance. You must understand, it's like a rat running a maze. If the scientist could tell the rat where to take the left, where to take the right, the rat would get through the maze effortlessly. That's what your spiritual team is in the heavens. They are the scientists telling you where to take the right, where to take their left. But if we can't hear its wisdom because we don't know the language they speak, how are we to get their guidance? Your universe speaks to you through nature and numbers. Start Googling the angel number you keep seeing on the clock. Every morning, the time you wake up, Spirit gets you to wake up at the exact precise time in the morning. That will give you guidance on your day. So let's say you wake up at 6:47 in the morning. And that's an important angel number for us, because why would I pick that number? I'll post it with the video. Angel number 647. So I go Google angel number 647. The meaning of that number is my guidance for the day. It's going to tell me what I'm going to rendezvous with and what characteristics of my personality do I need to showcase in order to get through that day beautifully. Okay? Also, if you keep looking at the clock at a certain time, you always keep seeing this same angel number. Look it up. That is your spiritual team communicating a message. Also, if you have a question you need to answer to, go sit outside and see what bug or butterfly or critter comes by you and Google the spirit meaning. Your ancestors, your spiritual team is always speaking to you, but if you don't know the language they speak, how are you to get their guidance? Because they can show you how to slay that Goliath in your life. They can tell you what the Goliath you're facing really is, because when you're doing shadow work and you're doing spiritual awakening, oftentimes we don't know what part of our personality we're trying to like, what is holding us back, what is our block. When you're in communication, constant communication with your spiritual team on the other side, they can show you these things. They can shine a light. Just like the scientist telling the rat where to take the right, where to take the left. We all have a Goliath, whether it's fighting a principality as big as what Sean McCarthy was doing, principalities in high places who are responsible for social injustices, or if it's just the trappings of your own ego mind. The ego mind is the thing that tells you you can't be, do, or have. Take whatever you got. Just like David, all he had was them little rocks. Just like Sean, all he had was his voice. And another thing they had was courage. David had rocks and courage, and a promise that God gave him that he was destined for greatness. Sean, he had his voice, and he had courage to stand up for those who did not have a voice, to expose social injustices. And they both had God behind them. And they knew with God behind them, there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. Nothing. Sean's purpose in his life was not to slay his Goliath in the physical. He was not to expose. His purpose in his life was not to expose that organization and those social injustices down here. It was just like Yeshua. To be persecuted, cross over, and then come back from the dead and show them that There's eternal life. There's no end to your existence. Don't let them make you afraid of dying. There's no death. So that's how Yeshua did it. Sean came back from the other side to speak his truth and live his voice. And his mother, Miss Linda McCarthy, gave his voice, allowed his voice to come through this book, his teachings. Because Sean wasn't afraid. He knew speaking these truths and exposing these injustices could have dire consequences. But he was fearless because he knew that was his purpose in this existence. And they couldn't take away the eternalness of his soul, so there was nothing to be afraid of. He was more afraid of not fulfilling his purpose, what he was created to do in this incarnation. He was more afraid of disappointing God and letting himself down and not standing in his moral ethics and his integrity. Don't let them. Wait, see that orb? See that? It's been here for a minute. That's Sean. Oh, I've been looking at that. Look at Sean. Oh. But pay attention to that. You know, your ancestors are always still with you. But they're in the wind. They're in the cardinal that flies by you. They're in the orbs of light. That's magical. Look at Sean. I'm looking like I'm going to see if I can't see right there. Let me see this right there. I'm trying to look see the orb back here. Don't dismiss those things. Don't dismiss those things. You know, I have pictures of the ancestors I'm working with up in my house. If I come back in from running an errand and one of those pictures is laid over, I don't just ignore it as a picture fell down. No, that is one of the ancestors that I'm working with is trying to communicate a message to me. Pay attention to these things. Have pictures of your ancestors that you want to be your guides on the other side. And pay attention to when the pictures move. It's like my ancestor tree outside. When the pictures would move on the ancestor tree, I knew that was the ancestor I was working with. Spirit speaks. Your ancestors on the other side still speak, but they don't. You can't find them in the usual places, in the usual spaces. They speak to you through nature, through numbers, through the wind, through the critters you rendezvous with. And they want to help you. They want to guide you. They want to show you how to slay the Goliath in your own life. But if you don't understand their language, how are you to get their messages? Okay, so we love y'all. And this is magical. And I just like to thank where I live at. They were so sweet. Let me just end it with this amazing little story. So I wanted to do a fire ceremony, you know, and I didn't know if I could do fire, so I went knock on the president of the association's door yesterday to ask. And they got a little ring camera, so I rang the little bell, and they weren't there, but they were across the way. So they came get me, and they said, "Look, we over here." So I went over there. So I told him what I wanted to do tonight. And I told him it was Lieutenant Sean McCarthy's birthday. And I wanted to have a memorial and a celebration and a teaching in honor of him. And they so lovingly said yes. And listen to this weird synchronicity. Now, this is God. The lady whose house they were at, her mother's birthday is today as well, February 6th. And listen, it gets one better. Just last year, her sister came in and they took her mother's ashes and released them right there. Just last year. Now, that's not God. And this wasn't meant to be. That is the magic of life. If you miss that, you miss the magic. What are the chances? The people I needed permission from to do this memorial for Sean just so happens to be at the person's house whose mother shares the same birthday, whose beautiful sweet ashes were released right there a year ago. That's God. Look at the orb on my head. So look, we hope this inspired y'all. We're very grateful to my community here that let us do this, and we're very grateful to each of you. And man, like David in the story of David and Goliath, take whatever God has given you and be willing to do whatever it takes to slay that Goliath that's standing, blocking the door to your destiny. Because God has given you all you need to slay that big beast. Even if you just got some rocks, that's all David needed. Because he was able to throw it with the power of God. Right? So don't worry about what you ain't got. Learn how to use what God gave you. And learn how to throw that rock with the force of God behind you. And don't let no one shake your faith. If God's made a promise to you about your destiny, you hold on to that promise. Despite what the world is telling you, you can't do it. You shouldn't do it. That's not possible. Audrey Hepburn said it best. Even the word impossible says, I am possible. We love y'all. Peace out. Listening to that you and Sean. Look, I'm like, oh, look, he's on a little word for a minute. Okay, look, we love y'all. Oh, we love you, Sean.